Voters across the U.S. are going to be heading to the polls on Tuesday.
There are several pivotal races being held in 3 states less than 3 months before the midterm elections. In Oklahoma, residents will cast their ballots in tomorrow's primary runoff. Elections are also being held in Florida and New York. And the vote will mark New York's second primary this year.
Joining us now is CBS News politics reporter Sarah Ewall-Wice. Sarah, it's so good to have you back in the studio. First time since the pandemic.
I know, it's so cool, but also a little weird to be back. I'm happy.
Well, so tell us, why is New York holding 2 primary elections in one?
Yeah, so some people have already been like, well, didn't New York have their primary?
Right.
And they did in June. We went and saw voters going to the polls in June. They voted in the primary for the governor. The problem is redistricting has thrown New York into a bit of chaos.
Yeah.
So they actually ended up having the districts that were drawn up by Democrats ended up being thrown out for partisan gerrymandering. And so what they ended up doing is appointing an expert and redrawing those districts. And long story short, they didn't have enough time, so they pushed back the primary specifically for the congressional races and for the state Senate races. So folks will be going again to the polls tomorrow. They already started early voting. You've probably seen some lines across the city, across the state for early voting, and they will be specifically voting in the primary for the congressional seats.
So in one of the races, you've got Representative Jerry Nadler, 30-plus years of experience, up against Carolyn Maloney, 30-plus years of experience. And then there's a third Democrat, Suraj Patel, who's arguing they're too old for the job and that a new generation of leaders needs to win. But Suraj has not done well. And Chuck Schumer, a Senate Majority Leader, has endorsed Jerry Nadler. How important is that endorsement?
You know what? Jerry Nadler, the congressman, has started to pull away in terms of polling as we headed towards this primary. He was endorsed by the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, who he's worked with since the 90s in Congress. He also had the endorsement of the New York Times. So he seemed to be pulling forward, but it is still a tough race. I mean, what happened when they did this redistricting is they took 2 separate districts. They combined them essentially in part of Manhattan, the upper half of Manhattan. And so they have 2 members of Congress who've both been in Congress since the early 90s, running against each other for the first time.
It's wild.
They tried to stay cordial for a lot of this race. They've been pretty polite on the debate stage.
For so long.
Exactly, and they've worked together on so many issues for so long. But things have gotten a little heated more recently as the polls show Nadler moving forward, and also just the state of the race as it gets so
Friends until they're actually fighting it out.
Yes, exactly.
Well, talk to us about downtown Manhattan, because there is a crowded Democratic primary in the 10th district. But that's a new district.
Exactly. So the 10th district, essentially, they created this new district. It was originally the district that Jerry Nadler had been representing. So now this is downtown Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn. But they had 12 candidates in this race. You can see this top 6 in terms of polling there. But it's a very crowded field. The one interesting one who's been ahead in terms of the latest polls, even though it's still a tight race, is Dan Goldman. You'll remember Dan Goldman was the prosecutor. He led the way in Trump's first impeachment trial. He's never held public office, but he's been a federal prosecutor and has worked with Democrats for a long time. He also happens to be the heir of the Levi Jean company. So if you can see that, he's put millions of dollars in his own money into his campaign and is polling ahead. Interestingly enough, there is a congressman who is also running in that district, even though he previously did not represent that district. Mondaire Jones actually represented an area up above New York City. And he actually, as they redistrict, decided to run in the 10th district and is up against Dan Goldman. He's actually been leading the attacks on Dan Goldman, calling him a conservative, whereas Mondaire Jones is a very well-known progressive and has been running and has represented part of New York since 2020.
Very interesting. I'm used to seeing Dan Goldman's face on another network other than this one. He does some TV commentaries and analyst somewhere. And I did not know, in all those times I've seen him, that he is an heir to the Levi
I learned something
fortune.
new.
That is something I did not know when I saw him obviously involved in the impeachment trial of President Trump. But that is something that he is and has put so much money into this race, has been getting a lot of criticism specifically on that front.
Does he wear jeans on the trail? Does he go? No,
So,
he doesn't.
No, he does wear jeans. I don't ask if they're Levi's, but I'd assume.
I don't know. This is actually something I want to get to the bottom of. I'm going to investigate. All right. Thank you, Sarah. It's great to see you. Welcome back after 2.5 years.
Thank you so much.